Sure, I'm ready.
Yeah, Kirtana, you can go ahead.
Okay. Okay, let us start the session with prayers. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Offering our most humble pranams at the lotus feet of our Guru, Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, who is embodied in the most beautiful form of Sadguru Sri Madhusudan Sai. I am Kirtana, pursuing my Masters in Sri Sathya Sai University for Human Excellence. It's my pleasure to welcome all the leadership board members, staff members, and my dear brothers and sisters of Sri Sathya Sai University for Human Excellence. This university is inspired by ancient Indian system of education, which caters to all aspects of human development. It encapsulates the value-based integral education system with the idea to promote and propagate Indian culture. Upanishadic truths are the basic foundation of this university, wherein sciences are taught alongside spirituality, humanities are taught alongside divinity, and above all, excellence is taught about to enlighten children. So I take pleasure to welcome our speaker for today. Ma'am, we are very happy to have you here. On behalf of all the members of the university, a very warm welcome to you.
Namaste. Thank you for inviting me. Namaste to all who are present. I'm happy to be here.
Ma'am, it was long before that I was just scrolling through the YouTube videos and I just encountered with your video. It is then when I learned about your book, Women in Sabrimala. With curiosity, I went and read your book. It was truly an eye-opener to me, the way you have brought out the profound Indian tradition in a very simple way, wherein even a normal woman like me can understand realities, ancient traditions that our ancestors used to follow in a very simpler way. And I personally feel everybody should read it, and it is very helpful. And thank you for that. For the benefit of our students, Miss Sinu Joseph ji was born in Kerala and brought up in Bangalore. She is an educator, counselor, author. She is all rolled into one. She is an engineer by qualification. Even though her qualification was engineering, she was much interested in, she thought that her ability and her potentiality is much more beyond a designation. So she started this organization called Maitri Speaks, wherein they found a realistic solution for the problems which is faced by our rural women. As I said before, she's an author of a very profound books, Ritu Vidya and Women in Sabrimala. So this book specially explains to us about the science behind the restrictions of women into Sabrimala temple, and also the science behind our ancient temples, our Indian temples. On that note, ma'am will be speaking to us on the topic energy levels in Indian temples. Ma'am, over to you.
Dhanyavad Kirtana ji. Namaste once again to all the participants. Ideally, I would have liked an interactive session where I can hear some questions that all of you have in mind so that I can tailor-make my answers to your curiosity. I know this is difficult, I suppose, because you have classrooms, but if any of the moderators can put forward some of the questions regarding Hindu Devasthanas that you would like me to address, it would be, I think the session will be a lot more engaging and interesting.
Okay. I would like to start with it. As we all, being youth of this country, when even I used to ask my parents when they call me to, come, we will take you to some temple, something like that. I used to always hesitate to go. I used to question them. So where is God? How is God? How do you know that? How do you feel it? And things like that. And later on now, as I'm studying in this university, I got to know all about it. And what is your like takeaway on like people who believe that God is not there? How can we experience God? One who asks such kind of questions and they hesitate to believe, like kind of atheist belief which they have. What is your what to say, your advice to them on these lines?
Okay, that's a wonderful question, Kirtanaji, and I'll definitely try to address that. Are there any other questions that you would like me to talk about?
Ma'am, you can also speak on Sanatana Dharma. I've seen a lot of your talks. I've read your blogs and everything. You have explained very clearly what is Sanatana Dharma. It's not Hindu religion. It's a mother of all religions. You can talk about Sanatana Dharma also. And I also heard how you spoke about Indian Gurukula system, how education in Indian Gurukula system made students more matured, more cultured, and more broadening their horizon of thinking. You can talk on that also.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
And also,
yes, yes.
The third question is, what is women empowerment on the principles of Sanatana Dharma? There's a lot of talk on women empowerment and women replacing men and all. But what Sanatana Dharma says is it's different. You can talk on that also. Thank you.
But all these are outside the scope of the topic of Hindu Devasthanas, no? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I meant with respect to the Devasthanas because we have very limited time. So with respect to that, are there any specific questions that you would like me to answer?
You can talk about the chakra system. I read in your book again, chakra system and temples. That also would be fine.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Chidambarji. I'll try and answer those questions.
Yes, ma'am.
To all the students, I just want you to think about this because this would help you understand the context of what we are speaking today. You know, there are so many rules associated with Hindu Devasthanas. They will tell you if you want to visit a temple, go in the morning, take a bath, empty your bowels, go before you eat food, go on an empty stomach. They will tell you this is out of respect to the Devata Shakti. I'll not use the word God because that is the Western Christian idea. What we have here is a Devata Shakti. So we will also talk about what is a Devata Shakti. Why do we call it like that? And the correct word for temple is also Devasthanam. The sthanam, the place where Devata Shakti resides. And when we have to talk about Devasthanam, we say energy in the temple. That's a wrong word. In English, in physics, energy has a different meaning. But if we have to understand it as per Sanatana Dharma, the correct word is Chaitanya. What is the Chaitanya in a Hindu Devasthanam? This is how we will answer the question. So why do they tell us to go on an empty stomach? Why do they tell us take bath and then go? Why do they tell us, if especially in the South Indian temples, if you are a young man, a man of any age, you should wear the dhoti and go traditionally. And ideally, the upper half of the body should be left uncovered for men. And women should wear the saree and go traditionally. Why? What will happen if we wear jeans and skirts and go? Why do they insist on that? There are so many reasons associated with this. And when it comes to women of the menstrual age, they say if you are in the menstruating age and if you are menstruating, at that time, don't go to the temple. If you ask the reasons, they will say, no, it is disrespectful towards the Devata Shakti. But tell me, are our Devatas so inconsiderate? Certainly, there must be some more reasons to this. There must be a science involved in all this. And that is what we will talk about today. What is that science in the Hindu Devasthanas? How does it affect our body? How does it affect our body? And only when we understand that will we realize that all these rules are there not to please the Devata. They don't need to be pleased. but to make sure that when we enter the Devasthana, our body is able to receive the prana shakti there in a much better way. That is why these rules are there. Let me give you some examples. The word prana, there is no equivalent of that in English. We loosely say life force. But what is prana? Prana carries oxygen, but it is not oxygen. Prana carries air, but it is not air. Prana is what makes you breathe, but it is not breath. Prana is that on top of which oxygen, air, breath, our entire ability to live happens on top of prana. Prana is what carries all this. How does life happen? So we all know that in Sanatana Dharma, we believe in the concept of Punarjanma, reincarnation. So all of us, before having this physical form, we are all in the form of an Atma. And even now, the Atma is inside us. When does the Atma become full of Jiva, full of life? When does Atma become Jivatma? When Prana enters. So when a woman gets pregnant, at one particular time in the pregnancy, a particular Atma will enter, and then Prana Shakti will give Jiva to it. As long as Prana is there in that Atma, it is a Jivatma, it is alive. When we die, what happens? This Prana leaves. So we say, oh, Prana has left my body. So person only dies not when the organs fail. Why do the organs fail? The organs fail because Prana leaves the organs. Okay, so this is the core fundamental thing that we need to understand. Prana is what keeps us alive. When Prana comes into the Atma, we become a Jivatma, we come alive. When Prana leaves, we die. Now this Prana Shakti in our Ayurveda and Yoga Shastras, they have said there are 5 types of this main prana. And each type governs functions in different parts of your body. It's very interesting because just the knowledge of these 5 pranas or pancha pranas will answer so many questions. What are these pancha pranas? First one, it is called the Udana Vayu or Udana Prana. It helps in exhalation. It operates in the region from the chest to upwards. Udana Prana, in the region of the head. So when you have to exhale, when you have to speak, the voice has to come out. If you belch, something else comes out. If you vomit, if you feel nauseous, all that is Udana Prana, which is making these things move upwards and outwards. That is the first type. Second type, what makes inhalation possible? That is called Prana Vayu. Remember, Prana Shakti is the main thing. And one of the Pancha Pranas are also called Prana. We'll call it Prana Vayu. Prana Vayu is what helps you in inhalation, taking the air inside. That operates in the upper half of the body again. And that is what facilitates and makes it possible for you to inhale air. Now, all of you may have been told by elders, when you eat food, don't talk. Isn't it? They tell you that? Don't talk while eating food. Why? Because when you eat food, when you put it in your mouth, what makes it food get pushed inside the throat? What pushes it inside is Pranavayu. When you speak, what makes the speech come out? It's Udanavayu. Udana acts upward and outwards. Prana acts from outside to inside. They move in opposite directions. So while eating, if you speak, these two opposite direction vayus will be active simultaneously and then you can choke. So that is why elders will always tell you, don't talk while eating. Okay, so this is the way in which you can remember Udana and Pranavayu. The third one is called Vyanavayu. Vyanavayu operates all over your body And it is what carries that primary prana shakti all over your body, all through the ends of your limbs. It is Vyana Vayu which carries it. When we have some disease which affects the whole body, like for example, a fever, that is because the Vyana Vayu is not properly regulated. There is some problem in Vyana Vayu. This is the third type. The fourth type, which will answer our question of why you should go on an empty stomach to a temple, the fourth type is called Samana Vayu. Samana Vayu. And Samana Vayu operates in the region of your stomach, and its direction is circular. Now, we would have all noticed when we eat a stomach full of food, what do? We rub our stomach in a circular direction unknowingly. No, we say, my stomach is full. Why don't we rub our hand or our head? Why do we rub our stomach, and why does our hand unknowingly go circular? Because without even realizing it, we are triggering the Samana Vayu to act. Samana Vayu is what will digest the food in the stomach. The minute you eat food and it reaches your bag called stomach, Samana Vayu is what will trigger the Agni in the stomach to start cooking the food, that is to start digesting the food. And Samana Vayu moves in a circular direction in the stomach. So if your stomach is very full and if you keep rubbing it externally circularly, in some ways you are mildly triggering the Samana Vayu to act, to start digesting. Now the fifth and the final type of Pranavayu is called Apanavayu. Apanavayu. Apanavayu operates in the region below the stomach, in your reproductory and excretory region. Apanavayu's direction is always downwards because it has to remove certain waste and certain fluids from your body in the downward direction. You can understand Apanavayu like the gravitational force inside the body. Now, what does gravity do? It keeps everything downwards. If you throw a ball or any object up, it comes down. Why? Because of gravity. If there was no gravity, what will happen? We will all be floating. Similarly, inside the body also, our rishis understood Yatha Brahmande Tatha Pinde. Whatever is in the cosmos is there inside our body also. So if there is gravitation outside, obviously there should be gravitation inside also. See, even today, modern science has not understood this, but our rishis understood it. So that gravitation, which is inside the body, is called Apanavayu. And the direction should always be downwards. Apanavayu is what makes it possible to urinate without problem. It is what makes it possible to remove the waste materials and excreta from the body. Apanavayu is what causes menstrual blood to flow out. Apanavayu causes the normal birthing of a child. If women have labor problems, that is because Apanavayu's direction has been affected or it has been blocked. For boys, for men, the release of the semen outside the body, that is because of Apanavayu. So Apanavayu regulates these core functions in our reproductory and excretory organs. Now, when we enter a Hindu devasthana, because of a process called Prana pratishtha, I will explain that in detail in some time, what this temple, this space, what it will do to our Pancha Pranas is that it will start interacting with these Pancha Pranas. There are two types of temples, broadly speaking. One category of temples, they will work on the pranas in the lower part of the body, Samana Vayu and Apanavayu, to regulate it. Regulate it means what? If Apanavayu is blocked, your excretory process is not happening properly, it will regulate that. If Samana Vayu is not functioning as it should, you will have digestive issues, it will regulate that. So one type of temple will do this. It will take care of the prana in the lower part of your body. Another type of temple, especially moksha dhams, what they will do is that they will turn all types of prana upwards. Why upwards? We have chakras across our body, and the higher chakras will enable us in the process of moksha. I'll explain this also in some time. But just understand that when you walk inside a Hindu Devasthana because Prana pratishtha has been done. It is not like any other building. You are all sitting in a university. There has been no Prana pratishtha done there. So you can enter, you can do what you want. But the minute you enter any place where Prana pratishtha has been done, then there are very strict rules because it will act directly on your prana. Now, if you go with a stomach full of food, you've eaten nicely, big, heavy breakfast, and you enter this temple where Prana pratishtha has happened. Because you ate food, your Samana Vayu will start functioning, correct? Your Apanavayu will be ready to release the excretory matter after some time. But now you've entered this place. The temple will start acting on your Samana Vayu, either to trigger it if it's in the lower chakras that it works upon, or it will turn the direction of Samana Vayu if it is a moksha dham, and it will turn the direction of Apanavayu. Many people have experienced this. When you go to some temples with a stomach full of food, you will have a stomach upset. You will have a stomach upset. You will have loose motions. You may have nausea and vomiting. Especially some temples which work in the region of the Manipura chakra, which is in the navel, because that will directly affect the Samana Vayu. So there are temples where they say, please go on an empty stomach. You must follow that rule. It is not out of respect to the Devata Shakti. They are not sitting there judging you like a Christian idea of a god. In a Hindu Devasthana, everything is centered around Prana Shakti. If you disrespect that, the harm is for yourself, not for the Devata. Please understand that is the first part. So whether you believe in God or not, when I say God, I don't mean the Christian idea. Whether you believe in the existence of a Devata Shakti or not, if you break these rules when you go to a Hindu Devasthana, it will affect you. This is not a question of faith. This is a question of science. So this is the first part. Now, Apanavayu, as I said, this is active when we urinate, when we excrete, during normal delivery of a child, and very importantly, during menstruation for women. During menstruation, now menstruation does not start and stop like how urination, excretion happens. When women menstruate, it's continuously for 4 or 5 or whatever the duration is. That means for that entire time, Apanavayu is very active. It is acting downwards. In that state, if a woman goes to a Hindu Devasthana, the Prana Shakti in the Devasthana will act on the Apanavayu in such a way that it will cause severe menstrual disturbance. And I have personally had many women who have told me their stories. If they go to a temple which is acting in the lower half of your body, based on your lower chakras, then they will end up bleeding very heavily. I have known women who have bled continuously for 3 months and no gynecologist was able to help. Finally, they had to remove the uterus through hysterectomy. If they go to a Devasthana, a moksha dham like Shabarimala, which actually pulls all panchapranas upwards towards the process of moksha, then women will actually have irregular menstruation in the beginning and eventually stop menstruating much before their natural age of menopause. And I have come across many such cases also. So please understand, the rules in Hindu Devasthanas are not out of respect to a god, and it has nothing to do whether you have faith or belief or not. That is left up to you. But you enter into that space, it will affect you. And the rules are there to protect you from being negatively affected by that. Now, why should you wear a dhoti or why should you wear a saree when you go to a Devasthana? The reason is really beautiful. If you see the traditional vastram, the lower half, both the dhoti and the saree were very similar. Today, we see that style of wearing the dhoti type saree. We only see it in Maharashtra and maybe among the Iyengars, the Madisaru that they wear, or the Pinkoswam. We see this traditional style of wearing only in some places. But if you see originally, both men and women, the lower half was exactly the same type of garment. It was like the dhoti. Okay. Now, why is it tied like that? It is tied in a way they call it pancha kacham. This kacham is what was there which protected and regulated the Apanavayu. And by tying it like that, you tie it with a knot which is slightly below the navel, because that is the point from where all across your body, the nadis which run, that originates just below the navel at the level of near the Manipuraka chakra. I'll repeat. There is a marma sthana, a marma point just below your navel, from where nadis that carry prana all over your body originate. So what is this new word? Marma, I said nadi, I said prana. What is all this? Let me tell you. You've all probably heard of Chinese acupuncture. It's very popular, no? We all hear Chinese acupuncture. So, and acupressure, those are certain points in your body where they apply pressure or they poke a needle, and then through that they do certain healing. Well, that originated from Ayurveda's understanding of marma. Okay, so marmas are also points in the body. Many of them are similar to the Chinese acupressure, acupuncture points, but there are some which are different. So marmas are points in the body where several nadis meet, and therefore there's a lot of prana concentrated there. What is a nadi? We all know that in the gross anatomy, we have nerves and we have plexus points, which biology recognizes. Now, unlike these nerves and plexus points, which you can see under a microscope or whatever equipment, marmas and nadis cannot be seen. Like how we cannot see prana, but we will know them through their effect. So the subtle version, which carries the very subtle channels, like nerves, we have subtle, very subtle channels that carry prana, and that is what we call as nadi. Points where several nadis meet, they are either chakras or they are marmas. Now we are talking about marmas. A marma, so if we have a marma point here in the center of the palm, you know, all our Devata Shakti stand like this if they have to bless. You know why? Because here there is a marma point, and from here you can release prana Shakti. They don't bless with the left hand, only with the right hand. Why? Because in our physiology, it's from the right hand that prana comes out from this. And from the marma here, prana enters the body. So in the, I'm talking about different things. I'll come to the prana circuitry in just a bit, but coming back to the navel, just below the navel is the marma point from where all the nadis that travel across your body will originate. Imagine what a powerful point it is. So if you want to send prana throughout your body, you must put pressure on that point just below your navel. Because like acupressure, where you slightly press to generate prana, Chinese call it ki or chi or whatever. For us also, one of the methods of filling prana to a marma is by pressing it mildly. So how do you press the portion below your navel mildly? When you wear a dhoti or a saree, the traditional way, the way of the panchakacham, the first knot is tied in that region. It is not like today's saree where we wear an underskirt and tuck it in, or like today's dhoti, which, you know, we just tie it in a different way. The original panchakacham style, the first thing is you'll take two ends and you'll put a knot at the region below the navel. That knot will continuously keep that marma point pressed. So now your body is ready. There is a natural charge of prana across your body. And when you go to the Devasthana, what you receive from that Devata Shakti is much more prana with a particular sankalp. Prana with a sankalp. Prana itself is very neutral. But if you put a particular intention in that prana will have that quality. Let us say one of you is not feeling well. COVID is around, it's everywhere, right? So if, let us assume, I am a pranic healer, let us assume. If I want to make you feel better physically because you're not well, I will hold a sankalp and I will send prana shakti to you with the sankalp of healing you. I can even have a sankalp. Let us say that you are having stomachache. I can even hold a sankalp to help you with the stomachache and direct prana shakti exactly to the region of your stomach, and you will feel better in some time. Because prana can carry very specific sankalp. We see temples of the same Devata Shakti, but with very different qualities. Like Ayyappan. Ayyappa is in Shabrimala, where he is like a brahmachari. But there are Ayyappa temples elsewhere where he is a grihastha, he is a married person. The reason you go to Shabrimala is very different from the reason you'll go to other temples. You see temples of Venkateshwara. One is Tirupati, where he is there for bhukti also, for mukti also. But there are other temples where it's very specifically for a certain reason. We have Devi temples, which are specific for fertility sometimes, specific for some other region. How do Devasthanas get this specific quality? I remember some years ago, this one temple, Balaji temple in Andhra Pradesh, got famous. It was called Visa Balaji temple because back in the day, it was difficult to get a visa. And people said, if you go to this Balaji temple, you'll get visa quickly. So it came to be called Visa Balaji temple. Like that, we have temples for different purposes. And the devotees will tell you, yes, I went to this temple. I used to have difficulty in menstruation and I got better after going there. There's another temple where people go, they're not able to have children. They'll go there and then suddenly they're able to conceive. How does this happen? This happens because prana can hold a sankalp. So when the archaka, when the temple pandit does the prana pratishtha, when he does prana pratishtha, what he does is he invokes the Devata Shakti and makes them reside in that sthanam. So this Vigraham, which was just a stone, will suddenly become a Devata Shakti. And how that transformation happens is what Prana Pratishtha is about. Why is your room, just a building, and the temple, a Devasthana, is a Devasthana? Because in your building, nobody has invoked a Devata Shakti and made the Prana Pratishtha happen. Whereas in a Devasthana, there is a technique, there is a science, and that is what they do through Prana Pratishtha. So when you go to a Devasthana, it is capable of directing Prana Shakti to you, which has a very specific sankalp. Now, someone is sending prana to you. Yes, you can receive it from all over your body. But which is the part of your body which connects nadis to the whole body? It is your navel or the region below your navel. So that region must be kept exposed. That is why the saree design is in such a way that it exposes the navel. Even today, if you go to villages and you see grandmothers or aunties, they will wear the saree very low. People will think it looks indecent, but they know the science. They know that it is from there that you receive prana. So when you go to a temple, when women are asked to wear a sari, it is for that reason, so that they can receive it through that marma point below the navel. And men take off the shirt and tie it below the waist for that reason, so that they can also receive it from the upper half of their body. So again, this is not about respecting the deity. We have lost the meaning of all this. So we oversimplify and say, the deity is not sitting there to judge you or to feel bad or feel good. That is a Christian idea of God. In the Devasthana, it is a shakti that is there, and that will have an effect on you. How did we lose this knowledge? Let me tell you a little bit about that. And at what point in human existence did they decide to build temples? Because if you see, even the Ayurveda texts, which dates back to maybe 5,000, 6,000, some say even 10,000 years, Ayurveda texts do not mention temples at all. There's no mention of temples. So at what point did temples come into existence? Now, according to Sanatana Dharma, we have 4 yugas, 4 epoch ages. In each yuga, it is said that the human capacity for pursuing a spiritual sadhana keeps reducing. And according to our capacity to pursue the spiritual path, there are different processes in place. Let us see what those are. In the first Yuga, we call it the Satya Yuga. In Satya Yuga, they say that all humans, they had the capacity to pursue moksha. They could sit for meditation for hours together. They would go into the state of samadhi, into super consciousness. They themselves became the Devata Shaktis. They could interact with the existing Devata Shaktis and they could merge into Brahman when required. They were of that high capacity, high caliber. And it is from that Satya Yuga that the Vedas emerged. The Vedas are not written by some person. The Vedas are those thoughts, those concepts that are in existence in certain frequencies. When humans are able to tap into that frequency by going into the state of samadhi, which is what our rishis did, then you will receive those information as Vedas. If you can see behind me, I'm not sure if it is clear, in my library, in the third rack from below, there is a photo of my Guruji. My Guruji was the founder of the Devipuram temple. He's a great Devi Upasaka. In his states of samadhi, he would see the Upanishads. He had never read the Upanishads before this. But when he would sit in meditation and go into samadhi, the Upanishads would appear in front of him in Sanskritam. They would just come flash and go, flash and go. And he narrates in his biography, in his life story, he narrates how before he could read it, that will go, but 1 or 2 lines he will remember. And then a few days later, he will go to a library and randomly pick a book, pick one Upanishads. And it so happened that this was exactly what he saw. That's when he realized that what he was seeing in his meditation was in fact the Upanishads. That is how the Vedas and the Upanishads were compiled. Nobody sat and thought, how do I write? What do I write? Next line. These were what people see when they go into states of samadhi. So people who had that capacity were maximum during the Satya Yuga. So they did not need temples. They were directly able to communicate with all these Shaktis. The second Yuga is the Treta Yuga. Here, the number of people who could do this reduced. You can say maybe if it was 100% or 98% earlier, now it became around 70 to 80%. So then or maybe even lesser. So then not everyone could go into the state of samadhi. So then people started questioning the Vedas. What is this written? Why is this? Who wrote the Upanishad? How did this happen? So how do you help them reach the same state as the rishis? You create rules. And those rules are what we call the smritis, the Manu Smriti, the Yajnavalkya Smriti. So these were written by rishis who could go into those states, who could understand the deep meaning of the Vedas, but wrote them in the form of rules. Somebody has turned on their mic. Request you to please mute it. Thank you. So in the second Yuga, we had the Smritis written down by those who understood that not everyone can now understand the Vedas. And so they made it a little easier for people to comprehend the Vedas. After that comes the Dwapara Yuga. That is where we have all our Puranas. In the Dwapara Yuga, there were about 50-50. The people who could go into these deep states were about 50%, and those who could not were the remaining 50%. So how do you still make this deep message reach them? We simplify it further. The rules are not being followed. So we make everything into a story. Our stories are not myth. They are not mythology. The stories in the Puranas carry the deep meaning of the Vedas. It is up to each of us to contemplate on it and not take it literally. In the Puranic age, the rishis started building what we call today as devasthanas, but those were only very few and deep inside the forest. So that if there was someone who wanted to learn this in a deeper way, they can make that difficult journey. So even today, if you see Sabrimala, you have to go through a forest. That is the traditional path. So it is not correct for the government to build a road because you're not meant to make it easy. That journey is a difficult journey, not just internal, but also external. And by going through the physical difficulties, it is easier for a sadhak to shed their ego and merge into the Brahman, which is what the final destination is. So in the third yuga, in the Dwapara Yuga, we started seeing a few temples put up by our rishis. In the entire Sabrimala thing in Kerala, we see the temples of where the deity has been installed by the Parashurama. Similarly, in Tamil Nadu, we see Agastya Muni. So like this, rishis across our country started setting up the initial temples. Today, we are in the fourth yuga called the Kali Yuga. Here, majority of us, even if the Devata Shakti appears in front of us, we will not recognize. We will only question. We have lost the capacity to go into states of samadhi. There are just a handful of people who can do that. They are the gurus. The rest, many of us have no idea that that is even possible. We ridicule the laws, that is the smritis. We only question. The Puranic stories which had such deep meaning have been reduced to very literary things. We are not able to understand the depth of it. So for people in the Kali Yuga, Shiva wondered how to make these idiots also attain moksha. What do we do? Idiots like me, right? We don't have any tradition. We don't come from a sampradaya. We are born into another religion. What do you do for such people? And that is how the Hindu devasthanas came into place. And the text where the details of this is written is called Agama Shastra. The Agama texts are a dialogue between Shiva and Parvati, where Parvati asks questions and Shiva answers. There are some texts where Shiva is the one asking questions and Parvati is the one answering. So their conversations are the Agama Shastra texts. And it is as per the Agama Shastras that the Devasthanas are built. So whatever the rishis used to do in the first yuga, in the Satya Yuga, they would sit for meditation, follow the yoga sutras of Patanjali, go into deep states and then attain samadhi. All that very difficult. People today will not do any of it. But that same effect can be achieved by simply walking into a devasthana and following the rules. That is how simplified it has been made for humans in the Kali Yuga to attain moksha. And that's why we see existence of temples initially during the Puranic age and later during the Kali Yuga. In the initial yugas, it was not needed and did not exist. It is when human capacity for self-realization or moksha reduced that they had to come up with easier methods, and that is how devasthanas came into being. Agama Shastra texts are divided into 4 portions. Today, we only have 2 portions left. And that is why even though the Pandit will follow all the rules, they will not be able to explain why they are doing it. Because 50% of the text has been lost or it is not in use. What are these 4 portions? 4 padas, 4 quarters of the Agama text. The first pada is called the Yoga pada, the Vidya or the Jnana pada. This is the part which had all the philosophical knowledge, all the theory of what that particular Devata Shakti is. So for Shiva, we have the Shaiva Agama text. For Vishnu, we have the Vaishnava Agama text. For Devi, we have the Shakta Agama text. Similarly for Ganapati. So pertaining to that Devata Shakti, there are these texts which will explain to you more about the qualities of that Devata Shakti. So the Vidya Pada or the Jnana Pada is what help people understand what the nature of that Devata Shakti is. For example, if it is about worldly life, good reproductive health, wealth, material well-being, success, career, ambition, all that are qualities of Devi and also of Sri Vishnu in certain forms. But if you keep that sankalp and you go to Kailash, to a Shiva Sthana, it will not happen because Shiva is largely about moksha. Moksha is the end of the physical existence as we know it. If you go to a mokshadam like Kailash and ask Shiva, please help me get married, it won't work. So each Devata Shakti had their own quality, and each temple further has one version of that quality because of the Sankalp during Prana pratishtha. Understanding all this is important for us to know why we have so many Devatas. It is literally custom made for each of us. Whatever your path in life, for you to go to the next higher and higher level, you have a very specific form of a Devata Shakti, and that comes naturally when you are born into a certain sampradaya. So Vidyapada gave us this knowledge of what this Devata Shakti is. The second pada is called the Yoga Pada. Yoga Pada gave the information of how do you achieve union with this Devata Shakti. And this was the method that the rishis would apply. So if they are of a particular sampradaya, via Devi also you can attain moksha. Via Venkateshwara, Vishnu also you can attain moksha. Via Ganapati also you can go all the way to moksha. So whatever the Devata Shakti, there is a process to help you go higher and higher up the chakras and therefore towards moksha. And that process was given in the Yoga Pada. Now these two, Vidya Pada and Yoga Pada, have been lost. And not many people read it. So this fundamental information about Devasthanas is no longer there. That is why there's so much confusion. The third and the fourth parts of Agama Shastra, those are still in use. The third part is called the Kriya Pada. This is what gives the rules for the temple archaka. How do you do the puja? How many festivals and utsavams you must have? What is the favorite flower of this Devata Shakti? How many times you must do the Nitya Puja? All those rules are written in the Kriya Pada for the temple priest, and even today they follow that. But if you ask them why, they may not be able to explain, because the Yoga Pada and the Jnana Pada, that knowledge is not as thorough. The fourth part of the Agamas are what we call the Charya Pada, that is for you and me, for us devotees. As we go to the temple, the rules that we have to follow is written in the fourth part, the Charya Pada. So they will say, if you are a woman of menstrual age, don't go during menstruation. They will write for everybody, go only after a bath, go on an empty stomach. This is the clothes you have, these are the clothes you have to wear when you go there. This is how many times you must do the pradakshina when you go there. All these rules for devotees are there in the Charya Pada, and that also is in existence today. So when we question why do we do this or that in a Devasthana, we must understand that these rules have a basis in the Agama Shastra, and without fully understanding it, we must never, ever change the rules or disobey the rules, because it will have a direct effect on our body, on our Prana Shakti. A Devasthana is capable of influencing our body. I have given you a hint of that through the Pancha Pranas and how the clothes we wear, whether we go on an empty stomach or full stomach, how all of that affects the Pancha Pranas. There's one more last bit of information I will tell you, and that is about the chakras. Chakras are junctions in our body where again several nadis meet. They are very powerful kendras because from there a lot of prana can be generated within the body. There are around 108 chakras inside the physical body. They cannot be seen, so don't go looking for it. But there are 6 chakras aligned along the spinal column, which are very critical. We call them the Shat chakras, the 6 chakras. The lowest chakra is called the Mooladhara chakra. It governs your excretory organs. So in the villages, we see the Grama Devata temples. Yellamma, Renuka, Mariamma, Maramma. All these Grama Devata temples, the way the Prana Pratishtha is done is such that it has the sankalp that the prana will be directed towards your Mooladhara chakra. So those who have problems with Mooladhara, they will struggle for day-to-day existence, food, shelter, health, all these will be problems. And if this is a problem, then you can't do anything higher in the spiritual path if you're struggling for basic existence, isn't it? So the first step, in every village, we had a Grama Devata. The Grama Devata temple will direct prana towards our Mooladhara, our lowest chakra, so that we don't struggle with day-to-day life and health issues. The second chakra is situated near the reproductive organs. This is called the Swadhisthana chakra. It governs the functions of our reproductive organs. Many Devi temples, which are about fertility goddesses, Devis, they'll say you go to this temple if you have fertility issues, if you're not able to conceive children, Devi will help you in this temple. And many devotees have experienced it. That is because in those temples, prana pratishtha is done in such a way that prana is directed towards your Swadhisthana chakra. If Swadhisthana chakra is weak, when I say weak, what I mean? There is not enough prana going there. If it is like that, then your reproductive functions will be badly affected. So prana is directed there through the temples meant for fertility. The third chakra is the Manipura chakra in the navel region. And this is a chakra which will help you with ambition, with career, with all the worldly things that you want. So that Visa Balaji temple I told you about, that is to do with this chakra. Most of the temples of Venkateshwara, of Devi, they also operate on this chakra because they help you in day-to-day life. By the way, it is not necessary that a Devasthana operates on only one chakra. It can be one or more chakras. It can be multiple also. Then higher up from here are all the chakras. I will not go into details. You have one in the heart called the Anahata chakra. Mainly Ma Durga and Ma Kali temples, they work in that region. That is how they make you fearless, because heart is the region of fear. And when you have enough prana sent to your heart through being in the presence of Ma Kali and Ma Durga, then you become fearless. And that is when the Anahata opens up. Then you have the Vishuddhi chakra, the region of the throat. This is where Ma Saraswati resides. So many temples that work on the Vishuddhi, they will help you become better at speech. They will give you jnanam, the true knowledge of the Devatas. And then we have the chakra which will work here at the region of the Agnya. And that's why we use kumkuma. Bindi is the wrong thing, the sticker bindi, because that will block the Agnya chakra, the plastic sticker bindi. You must always use kumkuma. Kumkuma is made with turmeric. Turmeric and sunna or chuna, what we call. It is that which gives the yellow turmeric the red color. When you put kumkuma here, it is a slight, mild trigger of the Agnya chakra. Agnya is the seat of the Guru. It is a seat of great knowledge. It is a seat of leadership. So when every day we trigger the Agnya chakra, we trigger that process. All the chakras are connected to our physical body through endocrine glands. Just to give an example, Agnya chakra is connected to pituitary gland, which governs all your reproductive processes for both boys and girls. So all the release of hormones, for boys testosterone, for women also LH, SSH, FSH testosterone, which then gets converted into estrogen, all that starts from here. And see how beautifully our ancestors said, this is where we have to put the kumkum. Because from this point, our pituitary gland is triggered and all our reproductive processes are taken care of. So this is just to give you a hint of it. So every temple affects your body directly by sending prana to one or more parts of your body via the chakras. All the rules associated with temple are keeping this in mind. So I will pause here and I would request the moderators to summarize or ask any further questions. I think we are about 5 to 7 minutes from the closing time. But thank you for listening so patiently. Over to the moderators.
Thank you, ma'am. I think, thank you, ma'am. We had a wonderful session. So much science is there behind our temples. It's very nice to see and nice to hear. And also we feel sad that we couldn't know about this. earlier. I think we should come up something in our syllabus or in a curriculum that all Indians or all Bharatiyas should know completely about their culture, science behind the Sanatana Dharma. There are a few questions. I just want to tell. Sanatana Dharma says, Deho Devalayo Prokto Jivo Bhute Sanatana. How to approach this inward process of self-discovery, and how is this statement connected with Devi Shakti? Temple touches our Prana Shakti, but how it is related to universal consciousness?
Beautiful question. Prana is all pervading. Whether we call it Devi Shakti, we call it Shiva, Shakti is the manifest form of Brahman. We have Purusha and we have Prakriti. In other texts, we call this as Shiva and Shakti. When the one decided to manifest many, it was through this Shakti. And that is why, whether it is male or female, anything that is manifested, anything that is a form that has Nama and Rupa, we add the word Shakti to it. So even though Shiva, Vishnu, they are all so-called male deities, what do we call them? Devata Shaktis. And Shakti is a term that refers to the feminine. Because we equate Purusha to Shiva and Prakriti to Shakti. Purusha is that static awareness, but it cannot act. It is just aware. The Shakti of Purusha is what makes action possible, and we call that the feminine form. This word masculine and feminine is also a reduction so that we can understand. Without Nama and Rupa, it is unmanifest. The minute Nama and Rupa, the Saguna forms come, we call them all our Shakti. So Prana Shakti, Devata Shakti, they are all part of the same Shakti. So we can't, in this state of ours, directly understand the Nirguna Rupa of Brahman. We can't understand. If I tell you, you and I are one because we're all made of the same Shakti, you will practically not know it. It will seem illogical. But through a Devasthanam, through the Anugraha of Shakti, which we'll say Devi Shakti, because all forms of Jnanam is Devi Shakti. Without the Anugraha of Devi Shakti, we can never reach those states from where we will know through our experience that we are part of the overall Nirguna Brahman. And till we reach there, we need the Saguna forms. We need the Saguna forms because as long as we are operating from the mind will only understand name and form. So through the Devasthanams, through Devi, we enter the process. And when we go deeper and deeper into it, we move from Saguna to Nirguna via that same Shakti. In the Satya Yuga, people could do it without the Saguna. Straight away, they would do Nirguna Upasana, and that is what Advaita is all about. But today, if you say Advaita, nobody can understand. Today, we need Agama. It will take us there. But the first step is Agama. First step is Devasthana. First step is Devi. Because it makes it easier for us who use our mind. When our own capacity to understand goes beyond the mind, when we understand through experience and not through words, that is when we have crossed that stage. And that may not happen in one lifetime. That may take many lifetimes. But I hope I have given some hints, if not the whole answer.
Wonderful answer, ma'am. I enjoyed it especially. There's a second question. There's a common experience of people getting possessed in the temples, which are the centers of extreme Prana Shakti. What is it in real? Is it some god entering the human body or something in human being exuberant? For example, there's a temple near our university called Gangapura, which is a Dattatreya Peetham. We often hear some Prana Shakti, some god entering or some stories on that.
So how much of this is real and how much of this people are simply acting? I will leave it to each of you to use your viveka. The beautiful word for that is viveka buddhi, viveka, your ability to discriminate the truth from the untruth. So I will leave it to you to use your viveka. But what originally this meant was that there were a few people, a handful of people who could go into that state where the Devata Shakti can be invoked in them. Process of Prana pratishtha also. A simple temple archaka, we don't realize that this is what is happening because they don't do any drama like some of the people might do, acting possessed and all that. What does an archaka do? Why does the Pandit leave the shikha open? Leave the shikha here. They leave hair just here, right? Traditionally, the Brahmin Pandit. Why? Because here is the point which we call Brahmarandra. And from here, a very invisible channel goes all the way to your spine, to the Mooladhara, where Kundalini Shakti is there. I'll not go into details. But when a child is born, I told you that Prana, Jiva enters the Atma. It enters from here. That's why newborn babies, they have this region very soft. So the Pandits leave the shikha here because it's such an important point. You have to protect it. And through this Brahmarandra, when they do intense tapas and prepare themselves, they can invoke a Devata Shakti. They can invoke a Devata Shakti and their body becomes the instrument for it. And via that, they will do Prana Pratishtha so that we all can experience it. That is why before doing any such rituals, they do intense tapas. They observe intense processes. They will not come near anyone, not do anything, eat only home cooked food. They're very, very particular. Why? Because your body should be able to handle that. So is it possible? Yes. The process is not so easy. The Devata Shakti, when they enter from here, and you must know how to channelize it. Similarly, what we call the Preta Atmas, that is those beings which have not been able to move forward in their journey after leaving the physical body. Those beings can also enter if you have not done the proper kriya, proper tapas to prepare yourself. So that possibility is also there. I will not go into the details, but theoretically, yes. How much of what we see around us is real and how much is someone just acting out? Use your Viveka Buddhi to understand and comprehend it. That's it from me on that question.
Yes, ma'am. As you told, women should not enter mokshadhams like Shabarimala. Can you tell any other mokshadhams which is allowed only for women?
There are no such things. It is just a false argument in social media because we don't know how to understand this, so we are trying to counter it. Moksha, a place which is about moksha, it will always pull the Apanavayu upwards. If you are a person of reproductive age, if you are a woman, it will badly affect your periods, your menstrual cycles. You see any of the female saints, Akka Mahadevi, Mirabai, you take any of their life stories and see. Yes, they became saints, they attained moksha, but they struggled with their bodies because their period stopped. Period is not a switch which you can turn on and off. When you are of that age and if your period is not happening properly, you'll have severe health issues. Endometriosis, PCOD, all these problems will also be there. So no, there are no moksha dhams which women can go to. For women, that process should start after menopause only. Even for men who are in the reproductive age and who are focused on samsara, on having a family, it is not recommended to go to moksha dhams because it will turn you emotionally towards the spiritual path and you will leave behind your family and responsibilities. So it has a physical effect. For women, it will affect menstrual cycles. For boys and men, it may not affect their reproductive cycles as much because they're biologically different, but emotionally, it will create what we call vairagya. They will lose interest in career, in studies, in family life. They'll not feel like taking responsibilities, and they will simply want to go on the spiritual path. That is why in our country, we all know, people would go for Char Dham or Kailash or Kashi only after they become grandmothers and grandfathers. After you finish your whole worldly responsibilities, only then should you go to a moksha. You get a job or to get married. No, you must go there after all those responsibilities are over. Until then, go to the temples which will help you in day-to-day life. All the Devi temples, most of the temples of Lord Venkateshwara, a few Shiva temples. These are the ones that help us in day-to-day life. We call it bhukti. And then when we are ready, we finished our responsibilities. Why is it important? Because you must exhaust your karma. You can't bypass it. When you finish that, and after you reach the age of 55, 60, when your grandparents, your children have been married, all that is when you take to the yatra of a moksha dham. It is not a joke. There are many people who've gone before time, have left their body before time. They say about Kashi, in the olden days, if somebody went to Kashi and came back, they will not let them enter the village. They will keep them in quarantine outside the village for 14 days to see if they will die or not. Because ideally, when you go to Kashi, you don't come back. You go there when you're ready to leave the body. If you go to Sabrimala also, you go there when you're ready to leave the body. So Mokshadham is not a joke. There are no Mokshadhams where women of reproductive age can go and not have their period affected. I know many girls who've gone to Kailash and their period has been badly affected. Same with Kashi, same with Amarnath. So let us not reduce such deep understanding to just social media arguments. Just to argue, we'll say, oh yeah, women are not allowed here, but I'm sure there are temples where men are not allowed. There's no such thing. It's a false understanding. If the temple is built as per Agama Shastras, women of reproductive age, if that is a mokshadham, should not enter. I hope I'm clear about this.
Yes, ma'am. There's a last question. Can we take it, ma'am?
Ma'am, like, will you...
There's one last question. Can we take it?
What is your advice to our young girl students to have a healthy reproductive cycle? Any foods they should eat, or any yoga or any physical thing that you would like to suggest them?
So all my advice is written in my book called Rutu Vidya. Let me just see if I have a copy. Yeah. So Rutu Vidya is, Rutu means menstruation and Vidya is the knowledge. This is the book Rutu Vidya. This is for women. It's also for men to understand menstruation from the perspective of our knowledge, Bharatiya Jnana Parampara. So what you should do, how Ayurveda understands menstruation, the relation to temples, to how you should treat your body, what you should eat, all that information is there. This book is available online everywhere, Amazon, Flipkart. You can even order ebooks via Google, via Kindle. So it's available everywhere. You just have to Google it. It's called Rutu Vidya. I think it's showing the mirror version, but I will just leave the spelling here in the message so you can look it up. And you can also Google Rutu Vidya and my name. I have done many talks on it. You can listen to those talks as well. Yeah. That's it. I think we can end the session, I suppose.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ma'am, it was nice to have you with us here. And most of the questions which were haunting us, like basic things which we being Hindus need to know, was clarified in your talk today. Like we went through like the shakti or chaitanyam that we experience in the temples today as a lot of traditional thinking behind it, a lot of science behind it, and how Atman becomes Jivatman, and how all Pranavayu, how our Panchapranas interact with this, interact with the temples when we go there, and what is the reason behind why women wearing saree and dhoti while we enter into the temples, and how these temples, different temples have different purposes, and how, what should we expect from each temple. And there are, like as you said, there are 4 yugas wherein people approached the way of looking at it in a different way, and how these chakras influence our body, and like while entering into each devatas are responsible for each chakra, and how are they going to influence our body. All these questions were like it is must need to know kind of questions to all the students, especially being Hindus. We need to know this. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your thoughts on these lines. Like we have a program called Vedic Studies in our university, wherein we are taught Upanishads, Narada Bhakti Sutras, and Bhagavad Gitas. So it is like revising, and you being an first-hand experience with all these things. It was nice to hear from you, and thank you for visiting our institutions. And we look forward to more and more sessions like this with you. Thank you for being with us, ma'am.
Thank you so much. It was entirely my pleasure. You have all participated beautifully, asked lovely questions. May you understand a Devasthana by the grace of Devi when you visit there. So everything I have said, it will come alive to you when you go to a Devasthana and spend some time there with your eyes closed. Just observe your body. Everything I have said and much more, that knowledge will come to you by the Anugraha of Devi. May that happen for all of you. Namaste.
Thank you, ma'am. We will end the session with the prayers. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.